He called himself a god, insulted an entire country, had his name in the dictionary, headbutted his teammate at a training session for daring to tackle him, and even threatened to beat up the best coach in the world. To many, he is arrogant, but the love he showed with his tattoos on the Valentine of 2015 is one of the many reasons why there can never be another Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Let's see why Zlatan's teammates and opponents, including Messi, saw him as a threat. He did some crazy things that no other player had done. During a friendly match between Sweden and the Netherlands, he injured his Ajax teammate Rafael van der Vaart. The injury kept the Dutchman on the sideline for over a month, and he was the only unimpressed person in the stadium when Zlatan scored this perfect goal against NAC Breda.
Ibrahimovic. Goed ingehouden. En nu dan een keer schiet dan.
In his head, you can't keep me on the sideline and score beautiful goals. All he wanted was an apology. But Zlatan's apology was even worse than the tackle. He told Van der Vaart, "I don't like you. I don't like you as a captain. I didn't injure you on purpose, and you know it. If you accuse me again, I'll break both your legs, and this time it'll be on purpose." Maybe Van der Vaart was right when he said Zlatan injured him on purpose because the two never had a smooth relationship at Ajax. Could it be because the Dutchman always scored more goals? We don't know, but we know why Zlatan almost got killed by another Ajax teammate, Mido. Ajax's manager at the time, Co Adriaans, could not find a way to feature both strikers simultaneously. He rotates them, but preferred the 18-year-old Egyptian over Zlatan, who had a rocky start at the club. Whenever Zlatan gets to play, he fails to impress the manager and the supporters. Frustrated by his form, he attacked a Groningen defender who had been marking him during an Eredivisie game. Although he did not get a red card, he was handed a 5-match suspension after the game. It was a free ride for Mido, who no longer had a competitor in 5 games. The angry Zlatan kept his cool until his suspension was over, but after his return, short-fused Mido gifted Zlatan an opportunity to shine. During a league match in November of 2001, the Egyptian got a red card and a 3-match suspension. Zlatan used this time to prove why he shouldn't be the second option and scored a brace against Fortuna Sittard. Mido returned to the first team after his suspension, but not for long. His anger let him down again, fighting with the new coach Ronald Koeman. The fallout gave Zlatan another chance to prove himself. But why did Mido try to kill Zlatan? The two players always delivered when called upon, but they were rarely together on the pitch. But on the day they played together against bitter rivals PSV, Mido failed to pass the ball to Ibrahimovic, who was in a perfect position to score. Ajax lost the game 2-0. Mido spewed insults at his teammates after the match. Zlatan won't take that. He tackled the Egyptian, who was cutting the wrappings off his socks with scissors. Mido sent a sharp object to Zlatan's head and narrowly missed. He fought back, and their teammates separated the duo. That was probably the last time Zlatan was at the receiving end of an aggression. From then on, he starts to fight, like in the case of Oguchi Onyewu. Onyewu probably knew what Zlatan could do to his teammates and was prepared for a fight. During a training session at Milan, Zlatan made a dangerous 2-footed tackle on Onyewu and even headbutted the American. The two began a fistfight and were close to killing each other. Several players and staff separated the fight and the training session was abandoned. But Zlatan suffered a broken rib. The Lion was hurt but was not defeated. He would later say, "Onyewu resembled a heavyweight boxer. He was nearly 6'5" and weighed over 15 stones, but he couldn't handle me." Thankfully, Zlatan didn't get a chance to send him to the hospital like he did to Materazzi. Everyone, including Inter Milan's coach Rafael Benitez, thought it was an accident until Zlatan admitted it wasn't. "I'd been waiting for this moment for 4 years," he said. When Zlatan played for Juventus in 2006, Materazzi gave him a foul that forced him out of the game. 4 years later, Zlatan sent him to the hospital. In return, he paid back with interest. But on Valentine's Day of 2015, Zlatan came to the pitch with no intention of hurting a player, but to show the world the immeasurable love in his heart. He took off his shirt after scoring in the 2nd minute. But to show the world his new removable tattoos. These tattoos were the names of 15 real people struggling with hunger, and it was Ibrahimovic's way of raising awareness about famine. That was love at its peak, but it is not Arsene Wenger's best memory of the Swede. The former Arsenal manager would rather remember Zlatan for defending a threat to his ego. In the early days of Zlatan Ibrahimovic's career, the Arsenal manager met with him, wanting to sign him. Zlatan was interested in the move because he would be playing with Thierry Henry, Bergkamp, Patrick Vieira, and other stars he saw on TV. The number 9 jersey had been reserved for him, and he was good to go. Everything changed when Wenger asked Zlatan to do a 2-week trial before signing a contract. Wenger tried explaining why the trial was important, and Zlatan would reply, "I don't do trials." That was the end of the negotiation. It was Wenger's fault. Why would he ask a lion to do trials? He was lucky Zlatan didn't throw anything at him as he did to Pep Guardiola. After his dream move to Barcelona in 2009, Zlatan fell in love with manager Pep Guardiola and was full of praise for him. After Pep's contract extension, he said, "I am very happy that Guardiola is staying because he has given me so much. Barca could not afford to lose a coach like him." The relationship was rosy until his ego was threatened. His freedom in the field of play was sacrificed for Messi's desire to play in the middle. According to Zlatan's autobiography, he scored more goals than Messi, and the Argentine wasn't happy about it. Messi might be the greatest of all time, but for Zlatan, even the best is second to him. Dissatisfied with his new role in the team, he told Guardiola, "You bought a Ferrari, but you drive it like a Fiat." That didn't trigger Guardiola to change his mind. Zlatan needed to try harder. Since Barca players were not allowed to drive sports cars to the training, Zlatan was desperate to break the law to stir up his coach. One training day, he drove his Ferrari Enzo to work, caused a scene. He said that was exactly what he was looking for. He admitted to conspiring with his agent to create problems whenever he wanted to leave a club because, in his words, "We are at the best when we create problems." From then on, Guardiola saw him as an annoying distraction, an outsider. Zlatan said years later that, "My mistake was that I tried to fit in instead of being who I am." He tried so much to fit into Barcelona because it was his dream club. The more he tried to adapt and not lose his temper, the more he got angry seeing the Barca players behave like Guardiola's schoolboys. After the semi-final clash with Inter, he yelled at the coach, "Coward, you have no balls," and threw a box of training gear across the room. Zlatan will not sacrifice his pride for his dream club. It was time to leave, and according to Carlos Villarrubi, Barcelona's corporate vice president, Zlatan even threatened to beat the coach publicly if he didn't allow him to leave the club. The board agreed to let him go despite his huge transfer fee. There was a problem. He wanted to join Barcelona's arch rival Real Madrid, the only club Barcelona's president didn't want him to join. The president refused, and they settled for Milan. His agent, Mino Raiola, would later say Zlatan wanted to join Real Madrid because it would have been the perfect revenge against Guardiola. Imagine Zlatan scoring a winner against Pep's Barcelona in the El Clasico. The celebration is hard to imagine, but it's not difficult to imagine Zlatan insulting an entire country. It happened in France in 2015 after PSG's 3-2 loss to Bordeaux. He felt the referee cost his team the match and was ready to defend his team outside the field. He confronted the referee and left harsh words for him and his country, France. His outburst caused a storm in France, with opposition leader Marine Le Pen saying those who consider that France is a crap country can leave. The next thing that happens will surprise you. Zlatan apologized. His apology couldn't change the minds of the French people about his arrogance. After all, you can't tell if it was genuine because he later said his arrogance was synonymous with the French people's. This time, nobody asked him to leave the country because he was out already. He once said, "I have my confidence and I believe in myself." Ignorant people call it arrogant. Intelligent people call it confidence. But wanting to be in the White House following his move to the US can't be confidence. It looked more like arrogance. He told American journalists after an MLS match,
And they're lucky I didn't come 10 years ago because I would be the president today.
he acted quite presidential when he arrived at LA Galaxy, putting out a full-page ad in the Los Angeles Times. The text on the entire page read, "Los Angeles, you're welcome." The city soon understood what he meant when he scored these two absolute screamers on his debut.
Picks it up, calls cross, Ibrahimovic! Are you serious?
The MLS was Zlatan. Players were scared of his ability to score from impossible angles, but were more scared of his longing for physical fights. After a fight with Nedum Onioha, the former Man City defender said of Zlatan, "Over here it is just a show for him. A lot of people are scared of him." During an MLS match between LA Galaxy and Real Salt Lake, the Swede brought Onioha to the ground by his neck when they weren't even competing for the ball. On another occasion, he hit the player on top of his head. Onioha said Zlatan kept saying, "You know what? I'm gonna hurt you." In the 78th minute, Zlatan didn't just hurt Onioha, but hurt the entire Real Salt Lake team with a winner and celebrated in front of the defender, saying, although Zlatan apologized after the game, his apology was rejected because Onioha thought it was fake. When Ibrahimovic was asked about it, he said he needed the fight to be alive. "I don't feel alive if they don't actually activate me. When I get angry, I feel good." Apart from his fights, he played so well and scored so many goals that he couldn't find a match in the MLS. When MLS fans reminded him of Carlos Vela, who was the league's leading scorer, Zlatan had some tough questions for them. How old is he? 29? And he's playing in MLS and he's in his prime? When I was 29, I was in Europe. Big difference. Zlatan always has the perfect response to anyone who does not see him as the best. United legend Eric Cantona even tried placing him in second position, but failed. Following Zlatan's move to Manchester United in 2016, club legend Eric Cantona welcomed him as United's new prince, while referring to himself as the club's king. He is, without a doubt, the king. Zlatan knows that too, but being called the prince is a demotion from his lifelong kingship, so he chose a title that was bigger than a king. He said, "I won't be the king of Manchester, I will be the god of Manchester." The club didn't get the message and failed to add his mural to the murals of legends on the club's gym walls. When Thierry Henry asked Zlatan why his figure was still missing, he said,
Still don't know how God is looking.
but Zlatan's picture is also missing in his own house. There's only an image of his feet on the wall, not his face. When Piers Morgan asked why, he said, "My kids should know that the food that is on the table in their beautiful life is because of these feet." His style does not change at home, but his second reason for not having a picture of his face on his wall shows how loving a man he is. He wants his kids to see him as a father and not the professional player Ibrahimovic. He said, "They should not grow up in my shadow because they are more important than me." You heard him right. He might be a god, a legend, and a king in the field of play, but not at home. Little wonder he's managed to keep his home united despite not being able to stay in one club peacefully. There is no record of Zlatan headbutting his wife and his kids. Oh, sorry, Zlatan doesn't have a wife because he is scared of losing 50%. But Zlatan once proposed to his long-term partner, Helena, who turned him down. Zlatan took no for an answer and would later say, "I don't need a piece of paper to show that he is mine." What a gentleman. But he is not so gentle with the journalists, especially when they ask bad questions. When this picture with Gerard Piqué hit the internet, there were questions about Zlatan's sexuality. Journalists dared to ask about it, and this was his response: "Come to my house to see how gay I am. Come with your sister as well." When a journalist asked him about the cause of the scar on his face, he replied, "Well, I don't know. You'll have to ask your wife about that." Zlatan does not spare any factually incorrect journalists like this one who asked incorrectly how he felt after scoring for the first time in 2 months. "Please, my friend, stop. If you don't know your information, don't talk to me," Zlatan said before storming out. Did you know that Zlatan once made his entire team ignore a group of anxious journalists for no reason? Journalists wanted to speak to the players after PSG's 1-0 win over Lille in the semi-final of the French. When a curious journalist asked why nobody speaks, Zlatan replied,
Follow me, nobody talks. Why nobody talks? Because I'm the boss.
Moments like this show the humor in him. Severally, he dropped some premium lines with journalists that could crack your ribs. Before the tense World Cup qualifiers against Portugal, the Swede was asked by a reporter who he thinks will win the game. Ibrahimovic replied, "Only God knows." When the reporter wondered how he was going to ask an unseen god who the winner would be, Zlatan said, "Talking to him now." Unfortunately, God and his team could not make it to the World Cup after a 3-2 defeat to Portugal. Again, Zlatan dropped another hilarious piece. "One thing is for sure, a World Cup without me is nothing to watch." During his unveiling at PSG, he said, "We're looking for an apartment. If we don't find anything, then I'll probably just buy the hotel." After scoring twice to qualify Sweden for Euro 2016 over Denmark, he said, "There was the thought that this would send me into retirement. I sent their entire country into retirement." But some of his most hilarious statements came when he was exiting clubs. He always has the right words to describe his achievements, even when nobody else does. Apart from his famous "I came like a king, left like a legend," he had even funnier departure messages like this one after he conquered the MLS. "To the Galaxy fans, you wanted Zlatan, I gave you Zlatan. Now go back to watch baseball." After departing the Premier League for MLS, he said the English teams were lucky he didn't come 10 years earlier when he was 25. "I came there and they said I came in a wheelchair. All the people who talked in the whole Premier League, I put them in a wheelchair. That's what I did." During his time at the Premier League, he scored 28 goals in all competitions before sustaining an injury that kept him out for months. But apart from scoring goals, Zlatan had done some real damage to others, like stealing their cars and bicycles. Zlatan grew up in Rosengård, one of the roughest areas in Sweden. When he was a kid, a bicycle that meant the world to him was stolen. In return, the lad began stealing bikes. On one occasion, he stole a nice-looking bicycle outside the dressing room at Malmö. It was later discovered to be the assistant manager's bike. When Zlatan was caught, he said, "Mister, I brought your bike back. I had only borrowed it." He borrowed a lot of bicycles to train, and sometimes the owners never get to see them. During an interview, he admitted to stealing a car with his friends. Despite these, he's not known as a thief in Sweden. He is regarded as a symbol of strength and dominance. That is why his name is written boldly in the Swede dictionary. Zlatanir in the Swede dictionary means to dominate with force because it defines the personality of the striker. That was similar to how his former teammate Angel Di Maria described him. His arrogance: he is number one in everything. He is the one who wins everything and does everything, but he's a great guy. He feels being second is the first position of the last ones. Whatever comes after the first one is a failure. This mentality kept him at the top throughout his career, but the fight against age wasn't easy for him, and the question of when he would retire kept coming. When he was asked about it in 2015, the then 33-year-old said, "You'll know when I stop. The whole world will know. It'll be news." Truly, the world knew, and it was news. After tormenting teammates, headbutting opponents, daring managers, lecturing journalists, scoring over 570 goals, winning 34 trophies, playing for 9 clubs, and entertaining football lovers for 27 seasons, it was time for the man who came from planet Zlatan to leave the game. It was on June 4, 2023, during AC Milan's final game of the season. With the stadium flowing with tears, Zlatan left the game, but this time King will not return. While giving his retirement speech, the Verona fans, whom he played against that day, volunteered to be his last victim. They kept booing, and Zlatan responded as usual. "Keep booing. This is the biggest moment in your year seeing me. Moments like this are why there will never be another Zlatan Ibrahimovic."